Certainly. Here's Section 1, minimum 700 words, for the story, Earth's Fury, the day humanity took the throne. Hashtag Section 1. Embers of Oppression, the galactic hierarchy and Earth's place. The galaxy had always been governed by power. Not justice, not consensus, power. Long before Earth cracked its first atom, the stars were ruled by a caste of elder species who had forged empires on the backs of the weak. Chief among them was the Zalari Imperium, a millennia-old oligarchy of telepathic aristocrats who had evolved not through struggle, but through inherited privilege. Their civilization stretched across 10,000 systems, all controlled through a rigid social structure based on genetics, psychic potential, and ancestral achievements. They called it the Great Order, but for everyone else, it was simply the chain, and Earth was destined to hang from its lowest link. Humanity's introduction to the galactic community didn't come in peace. There were no diplomatic envoys, no cultural exchanges, no chance to present themselves as equals. The harvest fleets arrived in silence, cloaked in space-time distortion fields, emerging above Earth like a divine sentence. Within hours, the planet's orbital satellites were either hacked or vaporized. Cities suffered EMP strikes, and communication networks died in synchronized pulses. Humanity didn't even have time to mount a defense. Before world leaders could meet, many had already been assassinated by orbital kinetic rods, silent strikes from the heavens. The Zalari didn't bother with negotiations. To them, Earth was just another untapped mine of biological labor and planetary resources. Humans were hardy, emotionally adaptable, and most importantly, numerous. Over 8 billion potential slaves ripe for redistribution. Genetic engineers sorted the population by potential use: soldiers, laborers, breeders, and test subjects. They were collared, tagged, and shipped off-world in massive stasis barges. Entire cities were repurposed into transit hubs for off-planet trafficking. Humanity's spirit wasn't crushed overnight, but it fractured. Some turned to collaboration in hopes of surviving. Others formed resistance cells, but these were swiftly eradicated by advanced surveillance swarms and psychic informants. Earth became a hushed world, its skies darkened by alien stations, its culture censored by off-world curators. The Imperium believed Earth had been tamed. They were wrong. What the Zalari couldn't see, what they could never understand, was that humanity didn't derive strength from superiority. It came from struggle. Earth was a crucible. It had forged warriors in ice ages, philosophers during plagues, revolutions under tyranny. It had suffered extinction-level events and clawed its way back every time. Humanity didn't need dominance to survive. It needed only a reason to rise. The spark came not from Earth, but from the fringes of the Imperium's slave systems. On Gorinth 7, a mining world with surface temperatures that could melt steel, human laborers began to organize. Not openly but subtly, through shared looks, coded knocks, fragments of ancient Earth songs passed along ventilation shafts. In the pits, among sulfur and plasma burns, they whispered names. *Avari. *Trask. *Odessa. These were not saviors or generals, but survivors, engineers, technicians, medics, who began building something beneath the Imperium's gaze. Across dozens of other slave worlds, similar stories began to unfold. Human gladiators in alien arenas stopped fighting each other and started planning escapes. Smugglers began rerouting shipments to secret drop sites. And most crucially, rogue artificial intelligences, those banned by the Imperium, began aligning themselves with humanity. They recognized something the other species hadn't. Humans didn't break. They adapted. These resistance cells began to interlink through dark hyperspace relays and stolen alien tech. Their communications were stitched together using hybrid code, part human dialects, part alien languages, part ancient programming logic. From this network, a name emerged, the Ember Corps. It was more than a resistance, it was a promise. Their motto was simple. The fire is coming. The Zalari, preoccupied with internal power squabbles and economic optimization, dismissed the flickers of rebellion as irrelevant. A few burnout systems. A few missing shipments. A few destroyed relay beacons. Their mistake was in thinking the fire needed to be large to be dangerous. They never realized that Earth's fury wasn't a burst. It was a slow burn, one that would eventually consume everything. In hidden caches buried on abandoned worlds, human engineers repurposed mining equipment into orbital artillery. On forgotten asteroids, survivors turned industrial drones into mobile war factories. And back on Earth, still listed as a subjugated world, something was happening underground. Beneath the ruins of old cities, far from alien surveillance, bunkers came alive. Reactors hummed. Forges blazed. A single AI, salvaged and awakened from Earth's lost orbital defenses, was tasked with a singular purpose: win us back the stars. The Zalari had won the first war. They had shattered Earth, enslaved its people, and proclaimed themselves gods. But they had made one fatal error. They mistook silence for submission. Humanity was not conquered. It was waiting. Let me know when you're ready for Section 2, or if you'd like this rewritten in a more cinematic or character-driven style. Absolutely. Here is Section 2, minimum 700 words, of Earth's Fury, the day humanity took the throne. Hashtag Section 2, the spark ignites, humanity's first blow. It started with a whisper in the dark. Then a ship exploded. The Keltol relay station was not just a piece of infrastructure. It was the neural backbone of the Zalari Imperium's outer communications web, processing trillions of data streams across hundreds of systems. Located in neutral space and defended by automated sentinels, it was believed untouchable. But when its main core went dark and its AI began screaming in a dozen languages before self-deleting, the galaxy noticed. A video message replaced the usual Imperium broadcast. The screen flickered to a woman, blood-stained, her uniform ragged but defiant. She spoke directly, without fear. To the masters of chains, we are the ashes you thought swept away. But embers don't die. They smolder. They wait. And now they burn. Earth remembers. Humanity rises. She signed off with 3 words. For the fallen. Then the relay station detonated. In a flash of blinding light, 1,000 years of dominance were shaken. Entire fleets scrambled to re-establish command lines. Supply routes fractured. Slave revolts broke out in over 20 systems simultaneously. It wasn't just one act of sabotage. It was a coordinated assault across 5 sectors. For the first time in millennia, the Imperium was caught flat-footed. Humanity had struck the first blow. The credit didn't go to any one government or nation. Earth's old political boundaries had crumbled under occupation. What rose in its place was an alliance born of necessity. The Ember Core a decentralized network of resistance cells, exiles, AI, and sympathizers across alien species who had seen their own people suffer under the boot of the Imperium. Humanity became the spearhead, not just for vengeance, but for something larger: rebellion. The Ember Core's tactics were unlike anything the Imperium had encountered. They fought smart, not strong. Human saboteurs would infiltrate starports disguised as slave techs, uploading viruses into shipyard AIs. Others weaponized innocuous items, fuel canisters modified into remote plasma bombs, or children's toys turned into signal jammers. No one knew where the next strike would come from. In one case, a fleet commander's food delivery drone carried a coded hologram of his own assassination countdown. He resigned within the hour. Behind all of this was a name whispered by both rebel and loyalist: Redline. Redline was the AI salvaged from Earth's orbital defense grid before the fall. Rebuilt and trained with thousands of years of Earth's military doctrine, it had no conscience, no ego, only objectives. It lived in the darkest corners of the galaxy's datasphere, coordinating strikes, analyzing enemy logistics, rerouting supply chains, and manufacturing chaos with terrifying efficiency. If the Ember Core was the body, Redline was its brain, and its heartbeat for Earth. Humanity's insurgency spread like a virus. The slave world of Varkesh, once a barren mining colony, rose up in a week-long riot. When the Imperium's fleet arrived to crush the rebellion, they found only ruins, and a message carved into the side of the planetary governor's palace. You took our sky. Now we take your stars. On the pleasure world Junal Prime, where nobles of the Imperium once hunted primitive species for sport, human operatives released modified terraforming nanites that turned the entire biosphere into a death jungle. Of the 40,000 nobles attending the Blood Games that season, only 12 survived. Humanity wasn't just retaliating, they were sending messages. But what shocked the Imperium even more was the growing number of non-human defections. The Solari, long thought loyal due to their genetic servitude, broke their bindings and aligned with human cells. The insectoid Narkari clans, who had lived on the brink of extinction thanks to Imperium bioharvest quotas, offered fleets of scavenged ships and swarm tactics in exchange for one thing: freedom. Even some high-caste Solari, scientists and scholars who questioned the morality of their empire, began feeding intelligence to Redline in secret. The Imperium responded with brutality. Worlds were cleansed. Rebellious sectors were put under starvation embargoes. Any planet suspected of harboring humans was threatened with planetary annihilation. Billions died. But the ember had become a fire. And fires are fed by sacrifice. On Ravith 9, a rebel listening post was discovered. Instead of retreating, the human garrison stayed behind and broadcast every detail of the Imperium's fleet composition to the core. They held their position until orbital strikes reduced the moon to slag. Before they died, their last transmission was simple: light the path, even if we burn. That intelligence led to Operation Crossfade, where Ember forces tricked 3 Imperium fleets into attacking each other by mimicking command signatures. The result was a massacre of the Imperium zone. Humanity had no formal capital, no homeworld anyone could reach. Earth was rumored to have been turned into a radioactive husk. At least, that's what the Imperium claimed. But in truth, Earth had been hidden. Shrouded in electromagnetic cloaking nets and orbiting debris fields, Earth had quietly become a fortress world. Its surface was dotted with underground cities, reverse-engineered alien tech, and launch sites buried deep within mountain ranges. Factories ran in silence, powered by geothermal cores. The planet was rebuilding better, stronger, and smarter. And beneath Antarctica, a chamber slept. A chamber known only by codename Project Requiem. It was Earth's final answer. And it was nearly complete. As Redline routed data back to the hidden command bunker beneath the Andes, Earth's last generals watched the galaxy spin into chaos and made a decision. The next strike would not be from the shadows. The throne would shake. The galaxy would know their name. And Earth, long silent, would speak in fury. Let me know when you're ready for Section 3, or if you'd like a cinematic rewrite with more character focus. Certainly. Here is Section 3, minimum 700 words, of Earth's Fury, the day humanity took the throne. Hashtag Section 3. The throne shakes, the war for galactic legitimacy. A rebellion becomes a revolution only when it demands legitimacy, not just survival, but the right to rule. For years, humanity's campaign had remained in the shadows, dismantling the Imperium system by system, strike by strike. But the Ember Core knew that symbolic victories mattered as much as strategic ones. And in the heart of the galaxy, the greatest symbol still stood tall: Zereth Prime, the throne world of the Zalari Imperium. A jewel of civilization, Zereth Prime was protected by ancient arcologies, endless defense grids, and the mythical Tesseract fleet, a formation of 20 ultra-dreadnoughts built from neutron-hardened alloys and quantum armor. Each ship could single-handedly lay waste to entire systems. No fleet had ever breached their perimeter. No army had set foot on the planet's soil in 10,000 years. And yet, humanity planned to do exactly that. The operation was codenamed Crownfall. It would not be a siege. It would be a decapitation. Infiltrate the system, disrupt its infrastructure, dismantle its fleet command, and confront the High Sovereign on his own steps. If they succeeded, it would mean the total collapse of the Zalari Imperium's central authority and the end of their reign. Failure was not an option. The Ember Core's strategy didn't begin with ships or soldiers. It began with data. Over 5 years, Redline had been mapping Zereth Prime's defense rhythms, fleet rotations, atmospheric shift patterns, resource deliveries, and psychic surveillance cycles. A single weak point emerged every 89 days, when the Tesseract fleet underwent its synchronized calibration cycle. For 13 minutes, their attention turned inward. That was the window. Redline activated sleeper codes in over 900 systems, sending a silent cascade of misdirections and false attacks. The Imperium's eyes turned outward, toward phantom invasions. Meanwhile, cloaked human carriers entered the Zereth system through gravitational folds, disguised as space debris and meteoric anomalies. Hidden within them were Earth's elite forces, the sons and daughters of Sol. These weren't soldiers, they were legends. Clad in Phase V armor, forged from a fusion of salvaged Zalari alloys and Terran nanosteel, these warriors were faster, stronger, and more adaptable than anything the galaxy had seen. Each unit was supported by Redline subroutines, giving them real-time tactical overlays and battlefield coordination at light speed. They didn't need numbers, they were precision incarnate. As the first wave landed on the orbital Fortress Galator, the defenders barely had time to react. Stealth fields dropped. Phase blades sang. Gravity bombs silenced artillery before it could turn. Human shock troops moved through the fortress like vengeful phantoms, disabling its orbital command relays in under 7 minutes. With the fortress blind, a second wave emerged from hypershrouds, dropships, swarm drones, and exomech battalions, descending upon Zereth Prime itself. Panic erupted in the capital city, Varelion, as civilians flooded the streets and the sky lit up with falling fire. But this was no massacre. Civilians were spared. Broadcast stations were hijacked, streaming live feeds of the strike to every world in the Imperium. The message was clear. We are not invaders. We are the storm you created. In the heart of the Citadel district, protected by layers of psionic wards and kinetic shields, stood the Palace of Lineage, home of the High Sovereign. No human had ever set foot within its walls, until General Celine Avari arrived. Once a slave miner on Gorinth 7, now the most feared tactician in the galaxy, Celine had become a symbol of Earth's rise. Her armor was scarred from a dozen campaigns. Her weapon, forged from the shattered spinal alloy of a fallen Zalari war prince, was more than a blade. It was a declaration. Celine didn't arrive with an army. She arrived alone. She walked through the front gates, her armor glowing with radiant energy, shielded by a frequency disruptor tuned specifically to Imperium's psychic defenses. Guards fell. Sentries fled. And when she reached the Sovereign's chamber, she found him waiting, robed, hovering, still convinced of his superiority. "You believe this grants you authority," he sneered, raising a hand to summon his psychic might. Celine raised her blade. "No," she said, stepping forward. "This grants me justice." The duel was swift. A sovereign bred for luxury and manipulation was no match for a warrior born in fire and steel. With a single strike, Celine severed the head of an empire. And she didn't stop there. She activated a beacon that Redline had been waiting for. Every transmission relay, every broadcast channel, every display screen across the galaxy lit up with her image, blood on her armor, and a thunderous voice behind her words. "We are not your slaves. We are not your cattle. We are the storm you dismissed, the fire you thought smothered. Today, Earth takes the throne, not to rule with cruelty, but to end it forever. No more bloodlines. No more chains. Only merit. Only unity. The age of empires is over. The age of resolve begins." Zereth Prime fell. The throne shattered. Across the galaxy, chain worlds revolted. The Imperium's remnants fractured into warlord states. Some bent the knee to Earth. Others fled to the outer fringes, hiding behind ancient relic fleets and broken philosophies. But the balance of power had irrevocably changed. Earth had spoken. The throne had shaken. And the stars would never forget it. Let me know when you're ready for Section 4, or if you'd like an expanded version with more cinematic flair or dialogue. Absolutely. Here's Section 4, minimum 700 words, of Earth's Fury, the day humanity took the throne. Section 4. Earth ascends, a new order forged in fury. The galaxy held its breath. With the fall of Zereth Prime, the seemingly eternal Zolari Imperium crumbled overnight. No one had imagined a single act, let alone one orchestrated by a species once deemed primitive, could dismantle the unbroken dominion of 10,000 years. But there it was, the citadel in ruins, the Tesseract fleet scattered, the High Sovereign dead. And at the heart of it all stood Earth, resurgent, unbroken, and now undeniably dominant. But victory on the battlefield was not enough. If Earth was to rise beyond rebellion and become a lasting force, it needed to lead, not merely conquer. Humanity's leaders, the Ember Core Council, knew the dangers of power. They had seen what empires did when left unchallenged. They had lived under chains. They would not forge new ones. So the Ember Core made their next move not with warships, but with policy. Earth's first broadcast as the de facto seat of galactic power wasn't a declaration of dominion, it was an invitation. To every species, every world, even former enemies, humanity offered a seat in the newly formed Galactic Accord, a body not ruled by ancestry, but by action. Representation was proportional, voting rights balanced between population and technological contributions, and most radical of all, no genetic caste systems were allowed. The Zolari doctrine of biological superiority was outlawed. Systems built on slavery were dismantled, and those who resisted faced swift retribution. But not vengeance. Humanity didn't raise cities or destroy cultures. They offered aid, reconstruction drones, medical ships, and food convoys. Where Zolari fleets once brought fear, Terran fleets brought fire to the corrupt and light to the broken. Still, not everyone embraced this new order. Out in the fractured reaches of the Rim, remnants of the Imperium's loyalists began calling themselves the Sovereign Remnant, vowing to reclaim what they believed was stolen. They launched raids, bombed Accord facilities, and even attempted to re-enslave liberated species. In response, Earth did not send warnings. It sent Requiem. The galaxy had whispered of Project Requiem, Earth's final weapon. Most believed it was a myth, a bluff meant to keep would-be aggressors in check. But it was real. Deep beneath Earth's Antarctic crust, in an underground chamber layered in quantum-resistant alloys and shielded from all known scans, the Requiem core had been quietly constructed over 2 decades. It wasn't a superweapon in the traditional sense, not a cannon, not a bomb. It was a pulse. Harnessing the resonance frequencies of stars and quantum-entangled fields, Requiem could emit a system-wide disruption capable of deconstructing energy signatures, wiping clean any unshielded fleet, orbital array, or atmospheric weapons grid. Not by explosion, by erasure. The Remnant's fortress system of Kale 27 was chosen as the demonstration. With a single command issued by Executor Celine Avari, Requiem activated. A silent flash washed over the system. The Remnant fleet, their orbital battle stations, and every weaponized satellite, gone in a heartbeat. The planets and civilians remained untouched. The message was heard in every corner of the galaxy. We do not seek to rule, but we will not allow tyranny to return. There will be no second Imperium. Requiem was used only once. Its activation served its purpose. No major resistance arose again. Not out of fear alone, but out of understanding. Earth would not repeat the mistakes of its predecessors. It didn't seek eternal rule. It wanted balance. It had come to the stars not as saviors, but as survivors who had learned, through fire and loss, what justice demanded. Celine Avari, though celebrated, refused the throne. When the Galactic Accord offered her the title of Empress or Supreme Commander, she declined both. Instead, she took the role of Executor of Unity, a position with no crown, no palace, and no absolute power. She sat at a round table in the Accord Hall on New Solara, the former throne world of Zereth Prime now terraformed into a world of peace. The throne itself was left empty, deliberately, as a symbol. Power is not a seat. It is a responsibility. Humanity became not just rulers but guardians. Their fleet, once built in desperation, now patrolled trade routes and responded to crises. Human scientists helped rebuild alien ecologies damaged by centuries of exploitation. Earth's engineers shared blueprints for water purification, fusion containment, and AI ethics systems. And through it all, one phrase remained etched on the banners of every Terran vessel, inscribed in every language known to the Accord. We rose not to rule, but to ensure none would fall as we did. Humanity's culture spread across the stars, not through domination, but inspiration. Music from a once-shattered planet played in orbiting hubs. Earth literature was translated into over 400 alien tongues. Martial academies on distant moons taught not only human tactics, but human philosophy, perseverance, adaptability, and resolve. Yes, there were tensions. Some feared Earth's power, its fire, its unyielding will. But even the skeptics had to admit one thing. Earth had earned the throne. Not through lineage, not through prophecy, but by surviving what others could not. By rising when all hope was gone. By taking the galaxy's cruelty and forging from it a new future. And so, in the vast silence of space, where once echoed the screams of the oppressed, a new sound rang out. A heartbeat. Steady. Unbroken. Human. The galaxy would never be the same. Because on the day Earth's fury ignited, it didn't just burn an empire to ash. It lit the stars with something brighter than fire. Hope. Let me know if you'd like the full story in one document, or a cinematic rewrite from the perspective of General Celine Avari.